Donk Nation, Jackson Janet's greetings and welcome to your daily dose of donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, bringing you some nonsensical Steelers talk. And Donk Nation, rejoice, you don't have to listen to my inner monologues today. Ginger, welcome back.
Gingy in the house, getting hyped. We are 1 week away from training camp, Donkey.
We are.
Is that right?
We are, and Dirty Red is back on the roster, Gingy. I know this has to be an absolute moment of rejoice in the Gingy cave of gaming and Steelerness.
Hey, that's where we're at. That's high engine, good quality special teams play. Glad to see him back.
I was like, you better watch where you're going with that good quality. Now, Gingy, someone brought up something really curious, and I want to get your take on this. Do you feel guys who were, let's say, good kick coverage guys in the olden days before the new kickoff rule happened, do you feel that this new rule might make some of those guys obsolete? And as a guy like Matt Cavich, a guy who's here to actually play, or is he just a filler? And do you think that his value will be affected by the new rules?
Yeah, let's talk about that, Donkey. I mean, in terms of actual physics of the play, let's break it down. Let's hash it out. So in the previous state, you needed guys who could do a whole lot of long sprinting, right?
Long sprinting, covering your lane, not getting knocked out. Yeah.
You're gonna need a different type of guy, I think, in this, where you can utilize a different type of guy. I think both ends there's something to be talked about there. How you return balls and how you cover that, I think, is gonna drastically change.
Yeah, this would be an absolute love fest for a guy like Devin Hester. You know, this is more gonna, to me, have the feel of punt returns, right? And this isn't a huge shot at Dirty Red, but I remember a couple big punt returns where he is the guy that ended up out of lane.
Whoa!
Pursuing. It's true.
Gonna start off here.
But let's be honest here. He's a high energy guy who's brought in, and I have no problem with him being a bottom of the depth chart guy. I really don't. I think he's filled in nicely. I think he brings what Tomlin loves at those bottom end positions. And me and you have talked about this before. I like guys who have starter potential in those bottom end guys. Tomlin prefers guys who play special teams, don't have upside. And let's be honest here. Dirty Reds, if he sees defense, we're in trouble, right?
Well, yeah, probably.
He's a dude who's 8 seasons in the NFL with 56 snaps on defense in like 8 seasons. There's a reason there. He's the type of guy that shouldn't see the field. So we're talking, again, an end of the roster special teams guy. Do I love the move? No. I understand special teams is going to have added value this year. And really, though, Gingy, it's not him that this move concerns me with. What does this make us have to question Cole Holcomb's injury recovery? That's where my real mind went as soon as I saw him being the guy who was brought in.
Let's hope not. Let's hope that this is maybe just a guy that we saw in the market. We can perform maybe a little experiment with. I know Tomlin is going to try to really get ahead of this play, this kickoff return. I see him trying to Bill Belichick it somehow.
Step on the field and run into someone. I had to bring that up because last week my shout out was to a guy who struggled as a Steeler but has one of my favorite plays in Steeler history. That's Jacoby Jones. RIP to him. You think we have any more Mike Tomlin stepping on the field moments, though?
Hey, if we do, I'm ready for that. You got to do what you got to do to win, all right? He didn't even see nothing. He was watching the TV, man. Like, what are you talking about? New phone, who dis?
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Gingy, we were talking a lot pre-show, and I think this is really what we should get into, right? The theory that the Steelers are bringing in someone, and now the rumor mill being hot with Brandon Ayuk, but finally a rumor about Brandon Ayuk that I can get behind. And that's a trade that involves Alex Highsmith being the centerpiece of the Steelers in a trade for Brandon Ayuk. Gingy, I know we talked about picks, and neither one of us like the idea of giving up a first or second round pick for Brandon Ayuk because you have to pay him then after you give up the pick. Does the fact that maybe it's a player-based one, now albeit with Highsmith we'd have like $20 million plus of dead money over the next 2 years, but Does that change your mind now of maybe acquiring him, it being a player-centric trade rather than a pick-centric trade?
It honestly does. Okay, and I think here's why. In terms, we're just looking at production and value over the last 2 years.
You can go two,
Taking
3 years. 2 years is fair because you get in Highsmith and Ayuk's best career year for both of them is in that window.
That's what I'm looking at. All right, and I think really honestly that for bang for your buck, that Ayuk is providing more offensive power than Highsmith is providing defensive power. Yes, there is an imbalance one way in terms of really what the cost of those individuals are going to be, adjusted for inflation or whatever you'd like to say. But like I said, dollar for dollar, I think production wise, you get more offensive production from Ayuk, and I think that that's what we need.
Yeah, when you look at it, it'll probably be an extra. Let's say he signs 25 million. It's gonna be 25 to 30 million if you sign him to extension. It seems. Let's say he signs in that range. That puts him about 10 million over what you pay Highsmith, and you have the dead money to count into. So let's call it 15 million a year extra for Ayuk. But when you look at Ayuk, man, he's a guy who has back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving seasons, 1,300 last year, 8 touchdowns in 2022, 2023. He has 7 touchdowns, almost 18 yards a catch. He really is that take the top off the defense type of guy. And he actually is a lot better route runner and will run over the middle, which might free up George Pickens more. But when I talked about this, Gingy, and I love that you're more into it now, what I talked about was the perceived value of, and when we put in Highsmith's numbers, if you take out the make-believe pass rush rate, which is pressures that no one understands because there is no definition, it's whether or not someone feels a pressure is a pressure. When you look at his real stats, the quarterback hits, the sacks, the holding calls against, Alex Highsmith comes in about number 62 since he was drafted in those rates. The best he ever got was the year when he had, 13, 16 sacks, somewhere in there, 2 years ago. He came in at number 32 in rate of pressure because his hits went down a lot. Pretty much every time he got to the quarterback, he sacked him. So you're talking a bottom number 2 pass rusher in terms of edge play guys. He's a bottom guy. He comes in right at like 60, 61, somewhere in there. I don't remember the exact number. And that's not bad. But when you bring in Brandon Ayuk, at worst, he's a top tier number 2 receiver, right? Okay,
yes.
So as a top tier number 2 receiver, and we'll say we have to put the money in there, is $15 million and probably a 4th round pick. So is $15 million and a 4th round pick worth upgrading from a bottom tier edge 2 into a top tier wide receiver 2? That's the question. And Gingy, how do you feel on that?
Yeah, that's it. I think you just fleshed out the argument that I said in a little bit different way in terms of, like you said, you're getting more offensive value than Highsmith brings defensive value. For $10 million more, I understand, but overall, I think that the amount of value extra value is worth it.
Right, absolutely. And then we can get into another point, but we got to flush out the Alex Highsmith value. What I gave was his number since he was drafted. Let's say 2 years ago wasn't a fluke, and last year was just more of a down year because Hayward wasn't there to protect him. He's going to have Hayward, so he's going to explode again this year, right? Now, if I say he's a top 20 edge rusher, does that change your view? And let's make it a 2-parter. Do you think Highsmith can get back to that top 20 edge rusher status?
Boy, if he's a top 20 edge rusher, for sure, and he's putting out that production, I don't know, Donkey, coming on both sides, that's pretty gnarly on that defense. If you really had someone to truly complement TJ Watt and not just sort of exist because of him.
Right, and the Steelers lean towards defense. Highsmith is only, 26 years old, so it's not like he's an old-timer. Now the question, Gingy, is, do you think he can recapture that form?
I don't know. That's a good question, Donkey.
I mean, when you look at him, he's a guy, if you want to know, 2 sacks his first year, wasn't the starter. Became this. Well, he started at the end of the year because that's the year Bud Dupree got hurt. Year 2, he comes in as a starter, gets 6 sacks. Right, 70. He actually had more tackles that year, 74, than he did the year. 14.5 sacks was the number. But his tackles for loss went down. His QB hits actually went up, but I think his play rate went up. Oh, he drew less penalties, what it was. And then last year, he drops down to only 7 sacks, 50 tackles, only 8 tackles for loss. We know he has shortcomings in run defense. There's never been any question about that. Do you feel that this top 20 pass rusher that happened for one of his first 4 years was the real deal, or was it the flash in the pan that we've seen so many times in Pittsburgh? Let's talk about Jason Worlds, right? Although I don't think it was a flash in the pan. Dude just retired after his one good year. Is it Bud Dupree? Is it that, you know what, TJ Watt takes so much attention and I had that one good year because people weren't ready? Was it that? Or is it here for this guy? I mean, he does have a good quick step. He does have undoubtable potential in some areas. Do you think he's going to rebound to where we would regret moving on from him and picking up Brandon Ayuk?
That's a good question, but I'd lean towards no. Like I said, I mean, you heard me feel pretty supportive about this trade. You've also heard me defend Alex Highsmith against your barrage of attacks many times on this show, Donkey.
I have only ever stated the fact on Highsmith, and I have never said anything other than he is a good number 2 rusher. But
yeah,
is it worth the money we
we'll
paid
check
him?
the tape. I'm sure you've said
not
plenty
worth the
more
money
aside
we paid
from that. Okay, but we'll
not
go
worth
on.
the money we paid him.
But in this, like I said, Ayuk, I think what he brings, worth it in today's NFL with what the Steelers' current needs are. Haven't replaced Deontay Johnson. Need to replace Deontay Johnson. It will help develop Pickens into a better receiver. I think that's another understated thing, too. We're talking about a locker room guy. Mike Tomlin likes locker room guys. I think that would
like Mike Tomlin.
I feel like he's a Mike Tomlin buddy. If he was in there, you know what I'm saying?
He's like a Mike Tomlin Jr.
So I would like to see a more veteran wide receiver, proven, developed like that, mentor Pickens in the right direction. That'd be great too. Worth it.
I agree with you. The reason I said I'd love this trade is the NFL is an offensive-driven league. The Steelers put themselves behind the proverbial 8 ball every year by trying to build a defensive first team. It's why we struggle when we get to those elite teams. Because, yeah, defense first can beat those bad offenses, right? But defense first doesn't beat a good offense because the rules are just skewed for you to be able to specifically pass the ball effectively in this league. So to me, it'd be a movement of the Steelers showing that they're willing to invest into the offensive side of the ball. And my biggest point to you was we don't spend any money on offense. And if you only sign him to a 3-year extension, which is what I would do, 3 years, $25 million a year, you aren't paying him when anyone else's contract's up. Yeah, you're going to lose Firemouth. Yeah, you'll lose Najee or whatever. But I don't think those are big, irreplaceable losses, as those both have been mid-tier guys at best. Probably more towards bottom half starters when you put the whole totality of their circumstance in perspective. And then by the time you have to pay Pickens, by the time if Fontanu works out, he gets paid, or Broderick Jones, the high-paid tackles work out, his contract's coming off the books. You know whether or not Pickens is the one. Hopefully you developed a wide receiver there, whether it's Roman Wilson or a guy you draft in the future, right? But this shows the Steelers are willing to go offensive in a league that needs to be offensive. And honestly, man, watch the tape in the games last year when Deontay Johnson didn't play and tell me that we have hope without bringing in a new wide receiver.
Though. We didn't have a quarterback that was going to be able to create anything independently, though. We had a quarterback that relied on every single other person on that line to be successful in order for them to be successful. I don't know if Russell Wilson falls into that.
Tell me what's different.
I said I don't know. Maybe.
Tell me what's different. We're banking on a bounce back from a 36-year-old. Did that work with Ben Roethlisberger ever? No, not really. So color me a little bit pessimistic on this. I do think we upgraded the quarterback room as a whole, but we're banking on a bounce back.
Dealt, and it's not in terms of what I've seen recently from the Steelers. I think it's ideal? No. But is it the most exciting thing that I've seen probably in 3 years? Yeah.
Eh, you're gonna have a hard time getting me more excited for Russell
You get
Wilson
more
than
excited. Yeah.
Kenny Pickett. But if you're saying Justin Fields is a starter, I'm all in with you because it's going to be exciting when we lose games because he fumbles it 3 times in the fourth quarter at Chicago. It does get exciting because
Yeah.
no lead is safe. With
Hey, I know
Russell Wilson, man,
nothing's perfect, right? But it's like I said,
I'm
I
not
still
saying
think
we
he's
won't
more
win
exciting than
games.
Mason Rudolph ever was, and Mason Rudolph gave us some great games. But you're
Mhm.
talking about a guy who's been playoff proven before, so you know.
I hear you on that, but the last time Russell Wilson won a playoff game, the Steelers won a playoff game. Essentially,
Well,
you're talking a guy who hasn't been successful in like 6 years, and when he got replaced in Seattle by Geno Smith's numbers were actually better than Russell Wilson's. Don't forget that. So
yeah.
it's not like we're talking a guy who is a top tier quarterback anymore. If this is Russell Wilson at 29 years old, maybe. I don't know. I'm just having a hard time being sold on him. But that's not even the conversation I want to get into. We've hashed that out enough. I mean, quarterback is what it is. I'll give you this. I'm not here to argue. People have made enough points that I'll say, yeah, the quarterback room is an upgrade from last year. Okay, quarterback room right now is an upgrade. The rest of the team, though, is just a big hodgepodge of question marks. And Brandon Ayuk delivers a known quantity. Okay, he's going to be 1,000-yard receiver or around 1,000-yard receiver. He's going to probably produce 6 to 7 touchdowns. He's a good deep play receiver who can also run over the middle and isn't afraid to. He's a known quantity. I think you have to really consider making this trade if you're Pittsburgh. And this is the thing I'll also say. I don't think there's one iota chance in hell San Francisco trades him when they're trying to win a Super Bowl this year. So let's just go there. I don't think this trade has any chance to happen. And I think it's purely because I don't think San Fran will make it unless you overpay. And if this is just Highsmith and a fourth or later pick, I love it. If we have to trade a first or second round pick, I hate it. And if it's a first or second round pick and Alex Highsmith, I triple hate it, Gingy.
Yep, I'm with you on that. I agree.
So I don't think that's going to happen. I think you have to look who is plausible to be available. I don't think the Steelers are going to get a wide receiver that's trade. Honestly, what I think happens is with the trade deadline now being week 9, I think there's a team or two that will have an expiring veteran contract that just is out of it early. Like, my honest to God hope, Tennessee's out of it and they're willing to move on from DeAndre Hopkins, right? That's my hope.
You're really willing to go with DeAndre Hopkins, huh?
I think you get him for. I think you get his expiring contract for a 4th-round pick midway through the season, and I think he will be a slam dunk upgrade over what we have, which isn't saying much. But I really, if you haven't heard probably haven't listened to the last couple ones, but honest to God, I was picking out offensive rookie of the year, right? And it came down to me. Does Troy Fontanu start week 1 at right tackle? Because if so, he could win it. But then I said, to me, the guy who has to win it's Roman Wilson, because I honestly think he's going to be the best number 2 receiver we have, but I think he's going to put up number 3 wide receiver stats as a number 2, which would be the best we have. So like 600 yards and 3 touchdowns over the course of the season. So I picked him to be my rookie of the year pick because I look at this wide receiver core. All I can remember last year was when Calvin Austin actually got off the line and got opened, he dropped the damn football. That's all I can remember. I've seen enough Van Jefferson in Tennessee and Atlanta to know unless that dude changed something dramatically, he's a number 4 wide receiver. He's a Miles Boykin, right? He's a guy who better learn how to play special teams if he wants to survive in the NFL. And then you're bringing in a Scotty Miller who he always seemed to get open in Tampa, and he actually did it too in Tennessee. But there's a reason why this guy's never gotten high quality snaps because at this point he's a guy who's shown explosiveness, but it's so inconsistent and you can't rely on it. And then what are we talking about? Quez Watkins, dude. If you thought Deontay Johnson was a basket case, Gingy, watch Quez Watkins highlight films from Philly. He will make 1 or 2 plays a year, and he'll have 13 of those unforced errors, as you like to call them, a week.
Oh, I don't like those. I don't like that, donkey.
the reason I would like a guy like DeAndre is, do I think he's a number one? No, but I think he would be the number two here. And I'm gonna say something here that's really, really why I want him. You watch George Pickens play football. If you were to compare him to a current NFL wide receiver, who would you pick?
George Pickens, current wide receiver?
We'll play the Jeopardy music here.
It'd probably be
DeAndre Hopkins, because that's who I would pick.
Old. Yeah, I don't know, Donkey. He seems
an outside wide receiver who makes circus catches and is a freak athletically. George Pickens, to me, mimics what DeAndre Hopkins was early in his career. And if you want to talk about a guy to mentor George Pickens, why not a guy who has the same skill sets, was the same type of receiver? I mean, I absolutely would love bringing him in. I absolutely think he's the guy to fit it. And I mean, here's the scarier thing. So Hopkins, 800 yards as a rookie, 1,200 yards his second year, right? And then he started really breaking out. I think after that, I'd have to finish looking it up. Yeah, 1,500 the next year. Then he had a lower season, but I think that's the year what's his face got hurt, and then the 3 straight huge seasons. Tell me that doesn't ring like George Pickens. 800 his first year, 1,140 his second year. The same size, 6'4", fast, skinny, circus catch on the sideline, more of an outside receiver, never a tactician in route running. I would really like that to be the guy, to teach our version of that guy how to be that guy, right? And now maybe you argue that's not the way you want to teach a guy like that. You want to have a Chris Carter when you get Randy Moss, right?
Maybe.
Well, I guess you could say it didn't work for Minnesota, but
yeah. Not exactly
I mean, we are where
how
we are.
You would want it to, but I get what you mean. I 100% get what you mean.
This trade to me just makes too much sense for the Steelers not to do it, though. Either one of them, if it ends up happening.
Yeah, it's really what it comes down to with what you said. Are the Niners even going to consider?
I don't think they consider
anything other than a blatant
2 first
gaudy overpay.
2 first, right? You would have to trade what they essentially. I feel, and watching how Lynch has been a GM the whole time, I feel you'd have to be as aggressive as Lynch is, which means you would have to offer the Christian McCaffrey package to get Brandon Ayuk. And is Brandon Ayuk worth the Christian McCaffrey package? Hell, is Christian McCaffrey worth the Christian McCaffrey package? Maybe because he stayed healthy 2 straight years he is. Maybe.
Yeah, he's the only when he's healthy, but yeah.
And he actually had back-to-back healthy seasons with the Niners, which still blows my mind. But I don't know. But I think we can agree on this point, and I think everyone in Steeler Nation can. We talked about it. We actually kind of agree on the trade idea. The Steelers need to upgrade this offense if they want to be competitive, right? If they want to be a competitor, they can't stay pat. Or do you feel they can stay pat and hope that the subtraction of Deontay was such a big blemish on the chemistry, that the chemistry gets better, and now the Steelers, who never supported Kenny Pickett, by the way, they could have shown support for him and said they kind of ran him under the bus a little bit, are now fully backing Russell Wilson. Does that now locker room cohesiveness lead to the competitive level for the Steelers?
Oh, boy. We'll have to see whether they can put some points on the board here, huh?
Well, my answer is simple. They have to upgrade. The locker room cohesiveness, even if it happens, does not make up for the lack of talent, in my opinion.
Right. No, absolutely. You're going to have someone to perform at the end of the day, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, this is where I'll end this part. If you have anything you want to talk about, we'll go right into it. Do you think that there is enough potential in-house upgrades that maybe we're just talking moot point? Do you think Jaylen Warren can take the step into elite Austin Eckler type territory? Do you think Van Jefferson can become a solid number 2, maybe Quez Watkins? Do you feel that Pat Firemouth will step up and become a top 10 tight end? Do you think that the pieces are here, that there is the ability, and I'm not going to say is the ability, do you feel a step up will happen from the in-house options, I guess?
I really do. I hope so. I mean, I think Steelers have an uncanny ability to draft wide receivers, especially ones out of nowhere. Am I right, Donkey?
I would say if you asked me 7 years ago, the answer is yes. If you ask me today, I would say they're above average, right?
Above
Definitely
average,
not
for
bottom
sure.
tier, but I would say above average. If you talk to me right after the Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, right?
Right.
You talk to me right there, it's elite. You talk to me since then, I mean, it's above average. Deontay Johnson was a good one. Juju Smith-Schuster's a second rounder, and I think he gave at second round value. So that's a push, right? Washington never worked out. Deontay Johnson was definitely at value for a second rounder. The thing is, the Steelers don't have that home run hit above value guy yet. George Pickens has been at value. He has the potential to be the guy who changes this, right? If he turns into a 1,500-yard DeAndre Hopkins guy, yes, the answer changes completely. They've done it again. But until he does, I have to say they're above average, yes, but good, pushing it, in my opinion. Because to be good to me, you have to be a top 15 percenter, so top 4 or 5 teams in terms of drafting wideouts. I don't feel like the Steelers fit that anymore. I think they're top 10 for sure, but I feel like we've fallen out where we were definitely number 1 in the mid 2000s, no doubt about it, or mid 2010s. Excuse me, mid 2010s.
Yeah, and even before that, right? That's what makes them great, because Plaxico Burress and things of
Right,
that
but
nature.
you also have
Yeah.
to remember we had the huge miss of the first rounder right before Plexico, right? Why can't I think of what his name is? Oh my gosh, it's gonna absolutely bug me. But yeah, there's Plexico, Hines Ward in the same draft. That draft class was absolutely stellar. But
Yeah.
really, outside of those two, it was. I mean, Santonio Holmes was a good pick, but not a first round one, right? So
Well, I mean, talking about value, he kind of had some important
probably
moments.
my favorite Steeler play of my lifetime. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, doesn't matter, because you just needed that one, right?
Troy Edwards, by the way, is the guy that was drafted the year before in the first round by the Steelers right before Plexico. Yeah, that one didn't work out so well.
No, they can't hit them all, but if they're hitting for 70% of them in terms of having starting time, drafted second round or lower, meh.
Yeah,
I think that's
like
okay
I
in my
said,
book.
they're firmly in that above average team, right? We don't have a every wide receiver we touch doesn't
No, it's
work
not.
out
We're not
type of
King
deal.
Midas, donkey.
No, we're not like we're. That's why I said, and we certainly were in the mid 2000s, Gingy.
Pretty close
Talk
there,
about
yeah.
even with the sadness Limas Swede caused me, Gingy. I mean, you're talking the production from Emmanuel Sanders. You're talking production from Mike Wallace. You're talking production from Antonio Brown. You're talking production from Juju Smith-Schuster. You're talking even before he broke his finger, some decent production at the end of that second year from Sammy Coates, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he broke
I
his
remember
finger and
that.
couldn't catch football anymore because that stuff
Gotcha.
happens. But modern day, I'd say we're right in there. I'd say we're competitive. I would say does the Steelers' ability to draft wide receivers make you put more faith in maybe Calvin Austin III developing and or Roman Wilson developing, that you feel that the Steelers don't need this trade, I guess, since that's the way we want to go now?
That is one way you could look at it. I don't know if I necessarily hold that position, but it's a position I'm willing to put out into the world.
That's fair. Fair enough. That's what this is about. We're nonsensical. There's no pads put on yet.
Right?
Soon there will be pads.
Nonsensical.
Soon there will be pads. Soon we will have stuff to talk about. Soon the rubber will meet the road and we'll have to get back into serious talk. But right now, let's be happy Dirty Red is back in the Steelers uniform because Gingy's brother from another mother can now represent the Pittsburgh
Here we go.
Steelers. Let's talk about the fantasy world of bringing in a wide receiver who will make a difference. DK Metcalf. I don't know why that hasn't caught more hype. How about these players begging to get a second chance with the Steelers? Some dude who is playing in the Canadian Football League that one time was a guy that Russell Wilson threw to when he was in Seattle 4 years ago before a knee injury. Is he going to be the answer, Gingy? Let's get into those type of hypotheticals, right? Is this dude with one career NFL reception the answer for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Apparently not, because we've never even brought him in for a workout. But we can live in that world until stuff really starts happening, right? We can live in the world that, man, Russell Wilson looks like he's been hitting the gym so hard, bro. Have you seen his body in that zip?
Yeah, I'm not interested in that, dude. I can't wait for training camp to start. We gotta see some 7-on-7s, donkey.
We can put on the two expert analysts were at the same practice, and one thought Justin Fields is for sure the answer. The other thought Justin Fields should be out of the league. Gingy, where do you lie in this? Did you get to see the practice? Do you know if Justin Fields is our future, or is he the biggest bust since who's a big bust for the Steelers? Pick whoever you want. Kenny Pickett, I guess we could. Is Chicago's version of Kenny Pickett gonna just be Kenny Pickett when he gets here? Side note, that'd mean he has a pretty good winning record. Do we take that? See, that's where you can go when you're being nonsensical, Gingy. So is there anywhere that you would like to take this conversation and show?
Oh, I'm good, donkey. I'm good. I let it all out. I wanted to talk about Ayuk. I wanted to talk about kickoff returns. That's pretty cool. And I really wanted to let people know we're getting ready. I want to get ready for training camp. I mean, we're getting close to game time here, donkey. 8 weeks out or something like that.
It's not the offseason without a prediction. So before we get to shout-outs, let's get to a prediction. Gingy, how many kick returns past the 50-yard line does Cordell Patterson have for the Steelers this year? My answer is 2.
2, huh?
Yeah, I think he gets it to the 49 once and inside the 20 once. I don't think he scores a touchdown.
Double it. Give me 4.
Ooh, any TDs?
Yep.
Splash, baby! Let's go. You knew there was going to be splash when it came to Gingy.
Yeah, you know how I feel about special teams. They'll turn the whole thing around.
That's Miles Killebrew's job, all right? He's going to block a punt again.
Yeah, he's done it, 2-3 years in a row, at least once.
It's like a guarantee at this point, all right?
Game-changing moments, for sure.
If he doesn't make the team, I'll be super pissed because that automatically cost us a touchdown a year. So I'll be really, really angry. So I guess, Gingy, you're back. It's fun. It's nonsensical. Do you have a shout-out? Probably not, but let's see.
It's off season, man. We're not ready for that yet. I'm getting warmed up, though. Right? It's not offensive today that you ask for it, but we're just not ready.
I have to keep the baseball shout-outs going, dude. Yinzer Palooza, for some reason, doesn't happen on April 12th, 412. I don't get me started on that. Yinzer Palooza was today. The Pirates had the biggest crowd in PNC Park since 2015, when they were actually a playoff team, right? They make a comeback, 9th inning, walk-off victory against the best team in the National League, the Philadelphia Phillies. This has to be the start to a playoff run for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So that's my shout-out. Way to show up Pittsburgh on Yinzer Palooza Day. And Gingy, do you even know what the hell a Yinzer Palooza is all about? You're a lot closer to it than me.
I'm not familiar, but I could only imagine that it involves pierogies.
And Wiz Khalifa bobbleheads that sing Black and Yellow. Just so we're clear.
Hey, I would not deny it. That's what was
Someone
going
came
on.
down my road today blasting Black and Yellow, and my son goes, "Yeah, you know what it is," and I was rolling, dude.
Yes. Yes. I like it.
Oh, it was great.
It
Okay,
is
I guess
great.
it's time. I gotta let you know I'm the Viking Donkey. That's Viking_Donkey and Twitch and Twitter, the X, that is. Your daily dose of I stayed pretty good
Jonky.
till the end. Your daily dose of Donkey with Ginger is the YouTube channel where you get all the fun stuff, this content. It's nonsensical still, so don't hate too much. But tell us your thoughts. Tell us your thoughts on the IU trade. What do you want us to cover during training camp? Do you want us to look at position battles? We'll probably talk about everything. Do you want us to be crazy and talk about roster predictions before we even see them a week full of pads? Who knows? Gingy, you know, so let them know.
I do know. Mutant Gingy in the house, hanging out, nonsensical football. Here we go, Steelers, 1 week out from training camp.